This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.
Now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com. Joining us right now, the legendary Paul Finebaum. How you doing, Paul?
Okay, Brian. Good morning. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Doing terrific. Welcome to Tyler, Texas.
Well, I've been there before, so.
Have you?
Yeah, I used to. My first job was in Shreveport, so I made the trek through there once or twice.
Well, it's changed a little bit since you've been here, I'm sure, but we're glad to have you on for now, that's for sure.
No, it's my pleasure.
First of all, I want to tell you, if you think the boosters are out of control at Auburn, whether you see these clowns at Texas A&M on a regular basis.
Well, I like that kind of talk. I have been to a game or two in College Station and keep up with the program, and they have no idea what they're getting into.
Well, I was about to ask you, if you would, explain to these folks what they're getting into when they move into the SEC.
I'll tell you one story, and it really involves Missouri and not A&M. I was having lunch a couple of weeks ago with Mike Slav, the SEC commissioner, and the day before, Gary Pinkel had been pulled over for DUI, and he said, well, typical commissioner-type stuff. He said, well, that's just really too bad. And I said, Mike, first of all, it just shows that Missouri is not ready for the SEC. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, in the SEC, all the big-time coaches have their own drivers. Nobody's getting arrested for DUI. And he kind of nodded his head. So, okay, I understand now. And it's just, A&M understands it a little bit better. It's a bigger-time program than Missouri. But, the first sign that A&M indicated that they were ready is by firing Mike Sherman, who's a pretty good coach, but couldn't win the big games. And in the SEC, you get fired for not getting to the national championship game, forgetting the Cotton Bowl.
So you think they're big time enough to go ahead and tackle this then?
I think A&M is. When you listen, I'll try to keep this clean for a family radio station, but when you've been in Texas's shadow as long as they have, I think you understand at least what big time looks like from the other side of the state.
Oh, I like that. Now, they hired Kevin Sumlin over the weekend. Any feelings on him being a hire? Do you think he's the kind of guy that can lead A&M into the SEC?
Well, he certainly knows about choking big games, so that would make him feel right at home at A&M, wouldn't it?
Oh, wow. This is even better than I imagined.
But I think it's the best they could do, and I don't mean that in a disparaging way, because 10 days ago Kevin Sumlin would have been one of the hottest coaches in the country, and I still think he's a great choice. That last game was a little bit hard to handle, but I think he brings energy to the program. I've met him once or twice at the Bryan Awards in Houston, and I think he is much closer to where they needed to be than with Mike Sherman, who's fundamentally a good coach, but obviously couldn't hack it on the sidelines this year, as everyone saw.
Yeah, it was pretty uninspired a lot of the time. Now,
yeah, but again, that's going to be every week now in the SEC, and this wasn't really a vintage. I mean, I know this is sounding crazy to say. This was not really a vintage SEC season. Only the fact that 3 teams from the same division were ranked 1, 2, and 3 at the end of the year. But for the most part, the SEC was down across the board. Mm-hmm. So it's not a bad time to be getting into the league, particularly on the east side. It's not a good time to be getting into the west when you're going to struggle to finish 4th in the SEC West next season.
Now, do you get the sense that the SEC schools are excited about the Aggies coming into the conference because it opens the floodgates so they can come into Texas and rape and pillage and take all the players?
Well, it's A&M didn't look good until you added Missouri, and then anything would have looked good, Brian. But I think, at least in Alabama, and that's where I live, we get A&M for all the wrong reasons. We know Bryant coached there, and Stallings coached there, and Sherrill coached there, and that's an interesting fraternity. So I think from that standpoint, A&M will fit. We like the fact that Aggies talk big and think they're important. So you'll fit right in with Alabama and LSU and Florida and all the other so-called blue bloods of the Southeastern Conference. But at the end of the day, if you don't win, you get run out of this place.
Well, no question. Now, did you have any problem with Robert Griffin III winning the Heisman over the weekend?
I did.
Well, okay.
I may be in the minority, but I really think listen, let me get the perfunctory congratulatory message out of the way. He handled himself well. You can't help but like RG3, but I really don't think he should have won. I voted for Trent Richardson, and Andrew Luck was second. And I think RG3 was very fortunate because of the timing when he played the Texas game. How you win the Heisman after beating up on Texas this year, I'll never know. But I guess the memo that Texas sucks hasn't quite reached outside of the Longhorn State, has it?
I like that again. You'd fit in really well here in East Texas right now.
Well, the way my career is going, I may be bringing my resume down to your office.
Come on down. All right. How do you feel about the LSU-Alabama rematch?
Well, I'm personally glad to see it. I walked out of the stadium on the night of the 5th in November feeling somewhat let down because, we had this epic game of the century matchup, and it just ended so badly. It was like, you're in the Masters. You have Mickelson and Tiger in a 3-hole playoff, and Phil misses an 18-inch putt. Somehow it just didn't work for me. So I'm particularly happy about it. It has nothing to do with where I live. I just think these are the two best teams for all the things you've heard ad nauseum, Brian. But I really think it's going to be an epic game. I haven't given it that much thought in terms of how it's going to play. Other than this, I think the pressure this time is going to be on LSU, and that was clearly not the case in Tuscaloosa.
Sure. Now, what do you say to the folks around here who are all, of course, Big 12 people, and they really, really feel like Oklahoma State got the shaft, and they should have that shot to play LSU because Alabama had their chance?
I'd say go suck on a grapefruit or something because I really don't care. Oklahoma State had a great season. Let me sound like everyone else. But when it really mattered, they didn't get it done, and that isn't a new story. And I think just call Boone Pickens and tell him to donate $200 million more to the facilities, and maybe get a difference maker that will get you past Iowa State on the road. Listen, you can't compare the losses. Do they marginally have better wins? Yeah. But come on over to the SEC, Mike Gundy. Let's see how you survive over here.
Who do you think wins this Alabama LSU game this time?
Right now, I can't quite back up this with facts and figures and suppositions, but I think Alabama's going to win.
Any particular reason why?
No. Well, I'm serious. I think it's going to come down to the state of mind, and Les Miles, Bryan, has navigated this season as well as I've ever seen anyone do it. Everything was against him early on with Jefferson and even the Honey Badgers suspension in the middle of the season. But this is going to be interesting to see how they play from ahead. I didn't like what I saw in the Arkansas and Georgia games. This team looked bored. They looked like they were uninterested in everyone and anyone, and that won't work against Alabama because the defense is just simply too good.
Surely they won't come into that Alabama game looking bored, do you think?
I don't think so, but I mean they were bored at the SEC Championship game. I realize this is a little higher brow. It's in their house, so to speak. But I think this is a fascinating situation to put Alabama in. They seemed bored the whole season as well. The only time they didn't seem bored was against Auburn when they had to get out there and really impose their will, and they did. Hard to listen. I'm just giving you a lean right now, and I know the people that follow me are going, well, that's a big surprise. Has he ever picked against Alabama? Not many times under Nick Saban, but quite frankly, Alabama hasn't lost many times under Nick Saban.
Hey, did you enjoy watching the Heisman telecast the other night and watching Les and Nick sitting right next to each other all night?
Yeah, I mean, it would have been funnier kind of for them to kind of stand up, go back 45 years, Ali Frazier, and put their dukes up. I mean, that would have been a great picture. But I don't think Saban quite has the personality to joke around, and I think Les was just waiting for the evening to end, knowing that the Honey Badger wasn't going to take home the Heisman.
Sure. Now, if Alabama beats LSU in the BCS Championship, should we have a split national champion?
Absolutely not. And with all due respect to Gary Danielson and Timmy B, enough of this already. It makes no sense. Again, the arguments you've heard, but it is one of the most inane conversations I have ever heard from people who really should know better. Gary was just simply trying to make conversation during the Arkansas game. Brando has lost his mind. I say that as a friend of Tim's.
I totally understand, and I know Tim, so I could almost agree with you.
But I mean, Tim, more than anyone else, needs to take off the last 2 weeks of the year, go to the Bahamas. I mean, I'll send him, okay? He needs to, get on a beach and just get a bottle of wine and chill out. I mean, the man's way too uptight.
It's all that BCS love.
I mean, Tim's tried to change the world overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. It took a while. It took a couple of thousand years, and I feel badly for Tim just getting on these, just kind of tilting at windmills right now.
I love it. Paul, we can't tell you how much we appreciate it. We're really excited about the fact that a piece of Texas is going to get a taste of the SEC on a regular basis, and that means we may be able to visit with you from time to time if you'll let us.
Bryan, it's been my pleasure. I look forward to it anytime.
Outstanding. Paul Finebaum on the Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM.
This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.